Welcome back to America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys formula and America's Medicare Associates. 419-794-3030 is the number. Again, it's 419-794-3030 online, americasretirementheadquarters.com. We would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that Mother's Day is coming up. So I want to wish Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there, whether you are, two-legged children, four-legged children, or in any variety in there, as we recognize our moms everywhere. Shark Tank investor Kevin O'Leary, he told CNBC the most important business advice that his mother gave him.
It's changed everything.
To lie to people because you want to
workplace
keep
stress.
them feeling good. You don't want to tell them the truth, and it's hard to tell the truth. But she told me once, if you never lie to anybody, even though it's hard to tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said, and you never get caught in a lie. So my mother's point was, why not just tell the truth? Take the heat on the moment. You'll never have to take the heat again. You're taking it because you want to be honest, and people will respect you for that.
So, guys, what is the most important money advice that you ever got from your mothers?
Wow. That's a good one. Kevin O'Leary. I love Shark Tank, by the way. Mr. Wonderful there, Kevin O'Leary. But never lie. That's always a good one. It's funny because I know I've told this before on the show, but my mom always said, whatever you make, put half of it away in the savings. And I remember my son, and we talked about it, my son with his first job, he was talking to Grandma, and Grandma told him the same thing that she told me, 40 plus years ago, when I got my first job. So I guess I would have to say, save as much as you possibly can. That was, I know that's kind of a cliche. I know someone here in the studio said his mom told him never run with scissors. And I guess, that makes perfect sense. Never run with scissors,
medical bills would crush you.
Yeah. Chad, how about you? Okay, what'd your mom say?
Wow, that's like saying, what was your favorite drink of water? It's like there's so many to choose from. But I think one of the things that always resonates with me and Mom was she'd always say, we'll get what you want. Like quality over quantity, I think. Sure. And so that had everything to do, with whether it was what school going to or, clothes or whatever it was that I wanted, make sure you take the time to really like what you're getting. And so didn't always listen, but that was the advice that we got. And so I think it correlates well with the stock market, with picking investments, upgrading quality, not necessarily just buying a bunch of different stocks or whatnot, but buying the ones that are of quality, to have, strong balance sheets, and the ones that are going to last through test of time. That's definitely one. But she was a big advocate of saving and investing. I think we've done a radio or a Facebook post on our story or my story or whatnot, which my mom was a big advocate of saving and investing, always made a big point of taking time to go down to the bank and get the passbook savings updated, and getting so excited about the savings balance.
Oh yeah.
Took me to my first financial advisor meeting, and the guy didn't down talk to me. He talked to me about dividends, and they're going to reinvest, and you're going to make more money. I was like, yeah, that's cool. And I held that same investment for like 30 years, maybe, until I was actually, in the business and took it over for myself. So that's just, it's huge.
When absolutely.
Your parents teach those sort of things to you.
I remember my mom she set up accounts for us, and they were the Christmas Club savings books. I don't know how many people would remember those, but they don't do that anymore. So we have a guest today, Jennifer Madasz, and welcome, by the way, but what was your little nugget that mom gave you advice on?
Just like Chaz said, my mom gave me so much advice. I don't know what to pick, but as far as financial, she said never put anything on a credit card that you can't pay off by the end of the month.
Mm-hmm. Good one.
I wish I could say that I have followed that advice.
Right.
But like you were talking about last segment, I've been in that position where I have been a person that lives paycheck to paycheck, and it makes it difficult. Makes it really difficult to follow that advice. If I could go back in time, I would give my younger self some advice to listen to my mom, because as much as I hate to admit it, she was always right.
Our parents get a lot smarter as we age, don't they?
Absolutely.
They do.
They really do.
How about you, Chris? What's your I know you mentioned one piece of advice before the break, but get anything else?
Yeah, well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my mom actually has worked in the banks for, I would say, 25 years now, 30 years now. And so she's always been a big proponent of savings, and that is kind of where the 401k thing went. But to what you guys said, as far as parents getting smarter as we get older, advice that I didn't listen to growing up, but I've come to realize now, especially as I've got a 6-year-old of my own, is that I don't get enough sleep. And a lot of my problems stem from not getting enough sleep.
Sure.
So sometimes I'm like, do I feel this way because X, Y, Z, or am I actually just exhausted? And more often than not, that is the latter. So that's not really financial, but that is something else that I've come to realize and really appreciate in the past couple of years. So again, great advice. If you can find a way to spin that into a financial nugget, then by all means, more power to you. But I think it's pretty sage.
Yeah, I'll add one last thing, and then we'll get into what Jennifer's here. But I didn't realize this until it really hit home when my daughter went off to college, and she came home for that first break, and she was a different person. She was totally different. The things that bothered her before she went to school were different when she got home. Because when she was in a dorm with another, roommate, they were responsible for their own things, cleaning and things like that. And when she comes home, her younger brother leaves stuff laying around, and it really bothered her. And I can remember one thing that I did. I wrote my mom a letter. And when I was in my mid to late 20s, I write her a letter apologizing for being a real royal pain in the behind. And she still has that letter today. Mom's 84, and she still has that letter. And she got it out, and she says, "Look here." She showed my kids that letter, and I said, "Mom, put that thing away or get rid of it, okay?" But I had that aha moment where I woke up, and it's like, oh yeah, that's what Mom meant. So when you have kids, listen to your mothers. They're very
they know better.
They know better. My mom always said I have eyes in the back of my head because she always knew what was going on. So once again, Jennifer, welcome. I know a couple of weeks ago we had your husband on, and we're glad to have Jason on. But so you actually have started your own company. I think you mentioned maybe back in November you went out and started your own company, Gladstone Medical Inc. Why don't you take a couple of minutes and tell us exactly what that entails, what that's all about, and give us a little bit of detail about that, and then we've got some questions to go through for you.
Okay. So I have been in the medical world for nearly 20 years now, which seems like it was yesterday I started. I have been taking notes. I've been taking notes of things I like, things I don't like, things I wanted to do when I finally did get my own practice.
Sure.
So I'm finally able to bring care back to the patient and centered around the patient comfort, and I do it in the privacy of the patient's home.
Wow. Okay. So like the old school doctors that make house calls.
Yes.
I mean, you don't see that very often anymore, and to hear that you're bringing that back, that's really kind of unique.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, and I will tell you this: with all of the issues that I've had with my parents, my mom going in and out of the hospital, and the care and treatment that she's getting at these different facilities, I've talked with several of the nurses and not so many doctors, but a lot of the nurses there, and it seems like the quality of care has really dropped off. And I don't know, I mean, they blame everything on COVID, the care because of COVID and this, that, and the other. And I'm really sick of hearing that, by the way. But that's what I'm hearing from a lot of the caregivers today. What do you feel and what do you see out there with the quality of care? And do you believe that it is because of COVID?
I think COVID may have added to the already to the problem that was already in existence.
Okay.
You know, we as nurses have been fighting for many years to have a cap on patient assignments. For instance, if you're in a certain type of area, the medical surgical unit, they can have 6 or 8 patients depending on the hospital. So you know that has definitely affected the ability to give the best care. Unfortunately, we have to prioritize more than we ever did before. So if you're healthy, you're probably gonna see quote unquote less intense care because they're worried about taking care of the people that really need it.
Okay. So I'm guessing the whole purpose of you going out and starting your own company and doing your own thing was probably you recognized a need for better quality care.
I did, and you know, physicians are retiring and not being replaced. When they retire, it used to be that you would be able to see somebody else in the practice, but they're so overwhelmed they're not taking new patients. So you know, we say that we've increased access, but you have to have the providers to be able to access them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask too, Jennifer. You know, in the finance world, we see all the time shortage of, you know, raw materials or oil or energy. Are you seeing a shortage of nursing and staffing issue in what you do as well?
Definitely. A lot of the physicians, especially, are choosing to go into specialties now rather than primary care. So we as nurse practitioners are trying to step up so that we can take on that burden. And you know, we have a lot of nursing schools that are offering practitioner programs, but it's going to take some time.
You know, I have a client, a personal friend of mine, who was a primary care physician, and several years ago, he basically got out of that completely, and now he's an ER doctor. And he said the primary care was just very, very difficult for him to go through the day-to-day grind with primary care. So he basically really got out of it completely. So if someone wants to get a hold of you or reach out to you, why don't you give us your website, and how can someone reach out and get in touch with you?
You can reach me directly at 567-408-1496, or you can email me at Jennifer@GladstoneMedicalInc.com.
Awesome. So I have, as you well know, we've talked, and my business is health benefits, Medicare, the Unaffordable Care Act. That's my bread and butter. That's what I do. So I know that there's a lot of other people that have talked about the concierge service, the pay for service, kind of like a retainer type thing. That's really what you're doing, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's truly where I pay X number of dollars. And, well, why don't you tell us, how does the program and how does your company actually work, and what we get from that?
Sure. So I have a one-time fee per month that covers any appointments that you need, whether you have a chronic condition like blood pressure problems or diabetes and need frequent updates, frequent check-ins, or if you have little ones, especially, you know, ear infections, sore throats, things like that, you get as many appointments as I can get on the schedule for you.
Okay.
So if you need to see me once a year, you see me once a year. Most people are finding, you know, I always get I never get sick, so I don't go to the doctor.
Uh-oh.
But
One of those.
No.
But I think a lot of my patients are finding that they don't go to the doctor because it's inconvenient. They don't want to wait 4 hours in the waiting room. The urgent care is overwhelmed. Things like that. It's not a matter of I don't get sick. or I don't need health care.
So guilty as charged. I have to confess because I had a routine physical checkup the other day, and I get a text message and I get a phone call confirming my appointment, and they say, please be to the office 30 minutes prior. Well, I know this is probably wrong, but, I kind of get in trouble for sometimes just putting it out there. That really frustrated me. And the reason why that frustrated me is because, you know what? Okay, I'm going to show up 30 minutes prior. I'm going to sit there for 45 minutes. And then you're going to they're going to take me back to the room, and another 10 minutes is going to go by, and a doctor's going to come in. And it didn't happen that way, so I feel better about that. But it has in the past. So it's kind of soured me to the fact that, like you just said, I'll confirm that that's how I am. It's an inconvenience. It's a horrible inconvenience. And I look at it where if it ain't broke, don't fix it type thing. And I know that's not the right attitude to have. Would you not agree? I mean,
it depends on how you look at it. To me, I'm trying to fix it because I think it is broken.
Right. And believe me, I'm sure that it is broken for me, and I need to do a better job at that. So with your company, you can set it up on a month-to-month payment plan.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If someone wanted to pay, just give you a annual check, would you accept that as well?
Yep. You can pay in any way that you can.
Okay. So what
Gold,
is
Gold, yeah.
gold?
Metals,
There you
yeah.
go. What would
Crypto.
you say is your ideal clientele? Do you have an ideal clientele, and what age ranges? Because I deal with a lot of seniors on Medicare. What are you looking for? What's your ideal client makeup?
Ideally, I like to cater to small business owners.
Okay.
I found that a lot of small business owners either can't afford to provide insurance, which means that their employees are getting insurance on their own, which, as you're well aware, is not a cheap endeavor. So what they end up doing is either providing something with an extremely high deductible. I've heard sick visit copays as high as $150.
Sure.
So between the copay and the deductible, people aren't using their providers, even if they are established. So what my idea is that I aim to be able to have the companies provide this as a benefit to their employees, so that they have that access. It keeps them healthier, keeps them coming to work. They're not calling off all the time. If they have small families, they're not staying home with little Johnny who can't go to school that day. So, it really is a benefit to the employer.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. With the high deductibles, if you have a high deductible without copays, office copays, you're footing that whole bill.
Is that something you can pay with your HSA then? Could you pay the expense of the care, or is that a qualified expense?
Yes and no. Unfortunately, it depends on the HSA. Some HSAs are very particular, almost close to a flex spending rule as far as what they will cover. Some insurance companies will actually, even though I don't accept insurance, when you pay your bill with me, you can actually take your invoice and submit it so that it does count towards your deductible.
Well, that's awesome. That's a really good thing.
Yeah.
So what age group do you like? I mean, would you like a husband or wife with young children? Do you want 75-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 65-year-olds? I mean, or you'll take anybody and everybody.
Typically, 3 months and older is what I treat.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest needs right now is people in their 20s and 30s. Because,
really?
Well, because they're working, they are happy and healthy, and those are the ones that say, I never get sick, I don't need the doctor.
Sure.
But they're at that age where they're getting to that point of, I'm going to need to have some routine screening. Women will need mammograms, they'll need colonoscopies. They do have some time from those 20s and 30s before they need those. But the earlier you can get healthy, the better chance you have of staying that way.
Hence the term preventative care.
Yes.
So that makes perfect sense when you say it that way. And I guess you really don't think about it a lot. If you start a healthy lifestyle 25, 30 years old, when you're my age, you won't. You'll hopefully continually have that healthy lifestyle to where you won't need to go for those things that are really starting to break down.
Right.
It's going to be a little less of a burden, so to speak.
Right.
It's got to be a lot less expensive too, because and we talk about this on our show a lot, where the cost of healthcare in retirement can bankrupt a couple. I mean, you're looking at $300,000 to $400,000 for a couple from 65 years and
A healthy couple.
A healthy couple.
Yeah.
When you're looking at the premiums and the out of pockets, if you can go through preventative care and stay healthy, that's only a good thing.
Absolutely.
I would think. So you are actually a nurse practitioner, right?
I am.
So why don't you give our viewers and listeners a little information on what's the difference in a nurse practitioner, and a doctor?
So there are different levels of nurses, but essentially a nurse is able to care for the patient in a way that is pretty much dictated by either a doctor, physician assistant, or a nurse practitioner. So they can't order anything, they can't make any decisions, they really have to carry things out. A nurse practitioner is a nurse first, but works into an advanced practice level where we are able to assess, diagnose, treat, order, and follow up. A physician assistant is very similar, but the biggest difference between a physician assistant and a nurse practitioner is our relationship with the physician. I think the biggest difference between a nurse practitioner and a physician is that a nurse practitioner treats the patient and physicians treat conditions.
The old patient condition. I got that makes sense too, because I've heard that before. And I'm assuming, a lot of times you go to the doctor and you don't really see the doctor. I mean, he'll come in because he's got to justify his pay. And I'm not knocking doctors. I mean, hey, I depend on them, but they have to justify, and they come in and, I always see a nurse practitioner, and then the doctor comes in and says, yep, everything they said is accurate. Got any questions for me? And out the door they go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
not even touch you at all.
Yeah.
Just kind of.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I see that a lot. I don't know. I don't know if it's right or wrong or good, bad, or indifferent. I'm assuming that the education and everything that goes into this is very similar. I know doctors may have a little bit more schooling and more debt to pay for, but
I feel like we shouldn't have to pay if we get sick. Like, we'll pay you to keep us not sick.
Right.
And once we get sick, I'm not paying. I'm sick.
I'll think about
Different.
yeah, yeah. I think it's a great thing, and I know there's some other companies out there that are moving into this. So how many patients can you actually see? I've heard from other clients and people that I've worked with that are doing the same thing or similar. They're only looking for a certain number of patients because that's all they can really handle.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is going to be your ideal sweet spot as far as number of patients before you have to bring on another Jennifer or a somebody else to come into your practice with you?
In my previous position as primary care, they wanted me to see 2,500 to 3,000.
Wow.
Not necessarily to see them, but to have that many patients in my practice before I brought somebody else on. So I don't have an exact number of what I would like to see, but it'll definitely be in the low hundreds as opposed to the low thousands.
How many is that a day? Did they want 10 a day, basically?
Essentially, just
10
depending.
10 appointments a day, Scott.
Well, no wonder I
you
get
almost
frustrated
hit that on
and sit
AEP
there.
this year, but
No,
Yeah, right.
working in urgent care, we would see anywhere from 40 to 60 patients in a
Wow.
12-hour period.
So
So
I don't want to even go off on that tangent. I've been
I
in
was just
urgent.
using it as an example.
Oh my gosh. So the numbers I've heard has been somewhere between 300 and 400. You know, an ideal number, and I have to believe that that's going to be where you give most the best quality of care to a limited number of patients like that. I mean, it's better for everybody.
Yeah.
Do you offer telemedicine at all, Jennifer? Or
I do actually. With my membership, the program is the first visit is in person in your home. After that, depending on what's happening, the telehealth is typically used as triage. If I need to come back out to your home, I will do that as well. But you absolutely get one annual visit.
Okay.
On that first visit, you also get a kit with a blood pressure cuff, thermometer, and a pulse oximeter, so that if we are doing a telehealth visit, we can check those vitals to get a better idea of what's going on.
so I just put my phone like that in my mouth, and you look in the. That
Eventually, maybe we'll have to talk to Apple and see if we can come up with that.
right, exactly.
The Apple 72, you know.
Yes, right, exactly. So if I participate and I call you up and I'm bleeding profusely and I see a white, what appears to be bone. First of all, why am I calling you? I should go directly to the emergency room or urgent care. Would you not agree that certain things need to go there, or do they contact you first?
Oh, absolutely. You know, if you have a bleeding episode, or you can't breathe, or something along those lines, absolutely, the urgent care and ER are definitely appropriate. If you have a sore throat or your sinuses are acting up, those are definitely not needed to go to the urgent care or the ER. You can, depending on what's going on once we talk, I may send you there.
Okay.
But if you are not having a life-threatening issue, then absolutely call me first.
One of the things that always frustrates me, I had a client that brought in a stack of a folder of 2 inches thick of medical bills, and he wanted me to kind of help him out, go through with that, and I'm like, what in the world are you? I mean, you're going to the urgent care or emergency room for a hangnail, okay? Seriously? I mean, that is where I try to stress to a lot of the clients that I have, is I try to educate them. And I think that as a society, we're failing in that, where we educate where you need to go for the proper care. Too many times I find people using the emergency room as their primary care. Well, that's not what you should be doing.
Absolutely. A lot of it is access.
Absolutely.
People wait and wait and wait because they don't either want to wait in the waiting room, or they don't want to spend the money for the copay. So they end up waiting until they just can't wait anymore, and now it's Friday night or Saturday and the doctor's office is closed. So you have to go somewhere. And that's where I come in. I'm pretty much available 24/7.
One of the other issues with the emergency room is if somebody walks in there, they can't turn them away.
Right.
But if you walk into the doctor's office and you don't have health insurance, they can say, I'm sorry, this is self-pay, and you're going to have to pay right now. And if they don't have the money to do that, they can't. Right. So I know we're coming up to the end of the show here, but one last question. If you were to have, is there a doctor that you also associate with for any needs that somebody might have that would be, I don't want to say more than you can handle, but something that
Be a
you run?
specialist or something?
Well, every provider, regardless of your education, has a scope of practice that we follow.
Okay.
So, if something is outside of my scope, I do collaborate with a gentleman, Dr. Bills.
Oh, okay.
He's here locally, and he actually has a similar practice in urgent care. So, but I do bounce things off of him when they become more than what I'm trained or have experience to take care of.
Awesome.
You still get that collaborative approach that you would expect in the hospital or the doctor's
Absolutely.
office. You
Yep.
just have it in a different sort of network. And
Yep, absolutely.
gotcha.
Awesome. Well, I know we're coming up to the end of the show. I didn't know if Chris, if you had any questions or have anything that you wanted to add, but Jennifer, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. Once again, to get a hold of her, you can visit the website, which is GladstoneMedicalInc.com, and all of her information is on that website. Your website's awesome, by the way. I have visited a few times, and
Where'd the name Gladstone come from?
When there used to be physicians that would go to that home, the black bag that they would carry was called a Gladstone bag.
Oh,
So
look at that.
feeds very well into the premise of what I'm trying to
very
do.
cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
And again, right there, if you go to Gladstone Medical Inc., you'll see actually
bag.
Jennifer, and she mentions that she is a mother of two. So as we are approaching Mother's Day weekend, I wanted to wish you a very happy Mother's Day, and thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thank you.
If you have questions, again, GladstoneMedicalInc.com is the place to go. And if you have questions concerning your retirement, things that we've talked about on this week's show, whether it be using gold as part of an inflation hedge or any of the things that we've discussed through the history of the show, AmericasRetirementHeadquarters.com is the website, or give a call to the number 419-794-3030. Once again, 419-794-3030. Want to thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Want to wish all the moms out there a very happy Mother's Day. All the dads out there, don't worry, your time's coming in a couple of weeks. But as we wrap up, guys, want to leave you with the final word.
Well, once again, I want to thank Chaz and Jennifer for joining me on the show today. And happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there.
Happy Mother's Day.